All right, it looks like we are at time, so let's go ahead and get started. My name is Chinna Chunanet with NACB and the Consultants Training Institute. Before we get started with the Around the Valuation World International webcast today, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. First, to obtain CP credit for this webinar, you must answer all the poll questions that pop up on your screen during the webcast. If you have an ABW subscription, you'll see your CPE service within 7 to 10 business days after today's broadcast. If you don't have a subscription to ABW, you're welcome to watch this webcast. It's free to all our members. But if you are interested in CPE, there is a link in our resources that you can follow for that. If you have any questions during the webcast today, please use the Q&A feature, as those will be directed to our presenters. If you have any questions about any CBA or any technical questions today during the webcast, please feel free to use the chat feature, as also be directed to me. All right, and with ABW and ABW International Webcast, we try to cover all the upcoming current events and topics in the industry. However, with the 1 hour that we have, we aren't able to cover all of them. So we encourage you to click on some of the resources that are available in your materials today. And I'll direct you to some of the other articles where we actually pull some of the information from. For our technical editors today, we have Wolfgang Nies and Pratik Shah who are joining us. We also have Andrew Newman and Brian Jones, who are an editor and also advisor. And today, we'll have a quick little GACVA news item, followed by our presentation from Alex Ruden and Jim Reinhardt on BV appraisers working with fixed asset appraisers. And really quick with our GACVA news, just want to cover that we do have our conference coming up. The annual conference is December 12th to the 13th in Las Vegas. If you are recertifying this year and need some CPE, that's a great opportunity to do that. There's a discount available for members. Also, your international chapters may have additional discounts available to you as well. And with that, I want to do a quick little video about one of our presentations, and then we'll get started with the presentation after that.
Hi, I'm Carla Nunes.
And I'm Jim Harrington.
And we're both from Kroll. We're really looking forward to going to the upcoming 2024 Super Conference that the NACVA is organizing in Las Vegas. Our session is called Global Economic Update, Impact on Cost of Capital and Valuations. And this is a year where we have US presidential elections, as well as the Federal Reserve Bank has started cutting interest rates. So there's a lot to unpack, and that will actually impact the outlook going forward for your valuations. And we will be talking about that, expectations into the future, and how have markets been performing in the current environment. Jim is actually going to give us some more details on that.
Yeah, I've got a lot of things to talk about. Current inflation is down, but why is everything still so expensive? I'll talk about the surprising results in the US and European stock markets since COVID. I'll talk about US stock market returns under each president, so you can pick out your favorite president and see how they did. And since inflation is on everybody's mind, we'll show you how presidents did after inflation took its bite out of your stock market returns. And since this is an election year, as Carla mentioned, we'll talk about how the market does in election years usually, and how it does after an election is over.
Please join us in our session in December in Vegas.
We're really looking forward to seeing you there.
All right, thank you. And let's go ahead and proceed with our presentation. So, and I'll turn the time over to Wolfgang, who will start us on the next segment.
Yeah, thank you, Chanda, and welcome to everybody from Germany. It's a great pleasure today for me to introduce Alexander Ruden and Jim Reinhardt. Alex is president and founder of Southeast Appraisal. He founded Southeast Appraisal in 1988. He is an ASA certified general real property appraisal business and intangible asset value. For over 50 years now, Mr. Ruden has worked in the areas of corporate finance, M&A, income or properties taxation, insurance placement, proof of loss, cost segregation analysis, fixed asset accounting matters relating to the appraisal of tangibles and intangible assets, purposes like acquisition accounting, ad valorem taxation, allocation of sale or purchase, bankruptcy, construction cost segregation, debt and or equity restructuring, equitable dissolutions, estate matters, fair value accounting, and so on. So it's a very, very, very long list. It's a great pleasure to have you here, with your profound experience. And also Jim. Jim has experience in all aspects of M&A, from strategic planning and structuring to valuation and financing. He has over 25 years of appraisal experience in a wide range of industries. As part of his valuation experience, he has rendered opinions for estate, ESOP, gifting, and acquisition pricing purposes. He also includes management experience of corporate finance function of office of a major accounting firm. He gave expert testimony concerning capital structure and cost of capital to various regulation bodies, and has been an expert witness concerning business damage and other valuation issues. Yeah, it's a great pleasure for us to have you here. We as business valuators are not usually experts in valuing tangible assets, to be honest, especially machinery and equipment. I'm therefore very, very excited to see what Alex and Jim have to say today and how we can think outside the box of business valuation. Having said this, I hand over the micro to Alex and Jim.
Okay, Alex is on. Thank you, Wolfgang. Great to be with you. Thank you so much. Okay. Here's what we will share with you, and we hope we are reasonably on target in meeting your expectations. And you super business valuation folks really need to know this stuff, maybe at least to a C grade level. So what I'm going to do, first of all, let's talk about the objectives we have. Wolfgang, first of all, can you hear me okay? Are we doing okay so far?
It's perfect. Perfect.
Okay,
Alex.
just checking. I haven't done this before, so you folks have to be gentle, and you're allowed to laugh at me if you want. That's fine with me. Okay, so be nice, be kind. Okay, here's the objectives. How to find a machine and equipment appraiser to work with, how to hire that appraiser, how to check out if you have adequate cross-discipline knowledge with the mutual tests taken, and that's going to be entertaining as we get on. How to work together on the analysis and report, and the story of the report from the perspective of the users and deciders. In hiring an outside appraiser, how to compensate he or she, should an engagement letter be written, and financial deliverables, timing, etc. Mutual review of the other's report may be important. Who is responsible for the final report and signing off? And there's a Bridgeport example. Well, Bridgeport is a machine tool, and you probably don't even know what the machine tool is, but I'll show you later on, and you'll see if we get to that. If we do not get to that, it's going to be available, and Wolfgang can send that to you later on. I created that document, and nobody else ever did that, so that might be useful for you. And then we're going to have machinery and equipment related appraisal definitions. And we probably will not get through all of this, but it will be available later on. Okay. Okay, so welcome, and nice to be here with you to share information concerning how you BV folks can cope and relate to machine and equipment, M&E, that's the acronym, appraisers. Please be alerted and fasten your seatbelts. This will not be a serious presentation, but will be basic, direct, friendly, irreverent, and hope fun, such as my style. Jim is more serious.
No, I'm not.
For your information to get to know me, which may be important as we move forward, I grew up in a technical engineering family. After ungracefully blowing out of engineering in college after 2 years, probably due to being on the golf team somewhat, but also due to my lack of discipline and intellect, I moved over to business courses. Wow, there is such a thing. I never knew. I fell in love with learning managerial accounting, finance, business law, and organizational psychology, but not auditing, statistics, taxation detail. And then in the appraisal business, spread my interest beyond just machine and equipment appraising into business valuation and real property appraising. Then it was fun, not just grinding machine and equipment work. So what did you just think? As mentioned, this is fun for me, but how many appraisers cross over as I between BV and M&E and maybe real estate? Well, I checked this out as of mid-September of this year with ASA, and of the 1,391 machinery and equipment appraisers, 829 are accredited senior appraisers. Of those, listen to this, of those 10, yes, I just said 10, are also BV appraisers. So what of GACVA? Do not know precisely, but of the designated CVAs, how many are also MTS, machine and equipment trained? Likely about the same percentage or less. And this is not just the United States, but also likely internationally. The punchline is that of all the BV appraisers in the world, perhaps 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100 is M&E adequately aware and trained. Okay, let's cut that in half. So maybe 1 out of 50 BV appraisers are M&E sufficiently aware. That is awful. And this shortcoming also crosses over into real property appraising, but maybe less so. In the ASA, we are trying to remedy this shortcoming, but this is a struggle. Okay, Alex, enough complaining. Now to Jim for some good thoughts. Go, Jim.
Oh. Hi there. And Wolfgang, thanks for the introduction. I started out in the corporate world in corporate finance and moved over into investment banking and then in the appraisal world. I also hold an RFC, which is a registered financial consultant. The other part of my practice is in financial planning and investment management. So I've got several things that I can be bad at. Anyway, the typical attributes of appraisers. The BV appraiser typically has a rudimentary knowledge of machinery equipment in the appraisal process. The machinery equipment appraisers, conversely, they only have a rudimentary knowledge of business valuation. Generally, even if at a small level. To enhance professionalism, there's a significant need for cross-discipline knowledge in that regard. Now remember that in either BV or M&E appraisers should have at least a grade C level of knowledge of the other discipline. That's typically not the case, but although we have worked with M&E appraisers who can understand what we're trying to accomplish. You're having hard to hear me. I'll speak up. And so the BV appraisers typically have financial oriented education, finance, accounting, and whatnot. M&E appraisers tend to be more technical. Their backgrounds, engineering or technical education. They're auctioneers, dealers, maintenance, things like that. BV appraisers believe they have enough information about M&E appraisals. Although, as I say, they know enough to be dangerous. And BV appraisers tend to lean on income approach to answer financial valuation questions, only secondarily market and cost, which which comes in to the interrelation of working with M&E appraisers and also real property appraisers. So we try to solve the problem, but M&E and BV appraisers tend to look at things from different perspectives. Alex, it's been, we've been together for 30 plus years and working on some interesting projects. So I have a built-in M&E appraiser with a financial, with working with the financial areas. Now, BV, like I said, we frequently have the opportunity to work with equipment appraisers, and some of the guiding principles. I think most of the BV specialists are familiar with these IFRS 3 and 13, which is for the Europeans, and ASC 805 and 820 for the U.S. And over the years, the differences between those two, the U.S. and European principles have narrowed significantly. It's been a concerted effort by the regulatory bodies to do that. Now, the business analyst arrives at a conclusion of value after examining approaches to value, cost, market, and income. Cost approach, the appraiser develops market value. In a cost approach, the appraiser, this is for machinery equipment, develops fair market value in use or fair market value in exchange. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The particular approach depends on the underlying economics of the business being appraised. In order for the equipment appraiser to select the appropriate value concept, they need to be guided by the business valuator as to the underlying economics of the business. For instance, you can say if the M&E appraiser will take the approach of a fair market value in use for a company that's going forward, but if the company has no economic value in and of itself, that may be the incorrect or inappropriate standard of value. And working together, you can come up with those. This is nothing. This slide has nothing new, I hope, to most appraisers. Just so you know, it's like when I do mine, I'll be honest, I focus on income and market and not so much on costs. And the M&E appraiser would focus on cost and market and not so much on income. So we have our relative strengths and weaknesses there. Here's it's the next slide. Here's a simple example of the interplay between the BV appraiser and the M&E appraiser. This is Monarch Manufacturing. They make important stuff, and my M&E appraiser has appraised the equipment, the fixed assets of the business on a fair market value and continued use basis, and that comes out to $14.9 million. If you go to the next slide, you find we have a problem because the business appraiser has developed the total value of the enterprise of being 16 million. And if you add up all the assets, the current assets and the fixed assets, they end up being 18,000,004. What do? Well, we go back to the M&E appraiser and say, there's not economic support for the 14.9 million that you had. It's the economic support is less than that. So we have what we call a squeeze down. So they'll have to decide among the assets they have how to squeeze them down, either proportionally or maybe reevaluate some of the approaches they made on valuing those assets. So we go to the next slide. And magically, we now have 16 million too for both sides of the balance sheet, and everyone is happy. So that's the kind of thing that we work with. So it's a give and take with the fixed asset appraiser to get the appropriate value for the company being appraised. More complicated case, using the same principles, but also applies to purchase price allocation in accordance with the IFRS 3, where the underlying concept is fair value. Now, most you all know about fair value, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But it's a price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability in an orderly transaction between market participants at a measurement date. It's fancy words, but it's from IFRS 13, fair value measurements. It's very important that this is the difference here is what would somebody that's in the business pay for this stuff? We can go on to the next slide here. Here we go. The fair value contemplates the hypothetical buyers. Fair market value is a hypothetical buyer and seller, whereas fair value contemplates the transaction between market participants, which is a difference. Now the purchase price allocation for acquisitions is you've got the allocation, and I know a number of appraisers, business appraisers, have gone through this before, and the key difference here is that you can go to the next slide. There we go. Not only are the tangible assets to be appraised, identifiable intangible assets to be appraised, using the same cost or valuation approaches that M&E appraisers use and business valuation people use. And in the intangible assets, the next one, patents, proprietary technology. I'm not going to read the list. There may be, and it may be all. There may be others. The key here is that these are the things you can't see or touch, which is my expertise. Alex's expertise. If you can see it, kick it, and throw it, it's probably something he deals with. If it's something it's ethereal, I'll deal with it, because I'm kind of an ethereal guy. We can go on to the next one.
Jim, I think that's our last slide.
Oh, it's the last one on this one. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a couple more of my own, which I will send to you.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen, Jim, and show those?
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing, then you can share those.
Okay. Oops. Share screen, and I want to share. Where is it? Get it up. I want to share my screen, and it's going to be. I can't find it. It doesn't want to show.
Okay, Jim, you're at the BV appraiser's dilemma in finding the M&E appraiser to work with.
Well, I had another slide, but I can't. Well, for some reason, I can't find, I can't find the PowerPoint.
Well, it's not on the PowerPoint, it's on the narrative, Jim. The
No,
people-
I have another slide, Alex. I invented another slide. Well, I can talk to it. Because for some reason I can't seem to find that. Okay, never mind.
Okay, if you want to speak to it, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
I'll speak to it. You can leave the other slide up if you want.
Okay.
The one of the issues on doing fair value for fair value balance sheet is you've got the same sort of thing that you have the same sort of thing you had with the Monarch manufacturer's balance sheet, except now you have more assets. You've got these intangible assets, and usually the primary intangible asset is something like customer lists. Well, the customer list valuation includes basically a rent for the fixed assets. And so the fixed asset appraisal is going to affect the customer list valuation. And it may require that the M&E appraiser do a squeeze down for that, and then the customer list valuation will go back up. So it's kind of an iterative process for them. Now the next thing is, now that you find that, says the BV appraiser's dilemma is finding an M&E appraiser to work with. It's not really a dilemma. There are lots of good guys to work with. But if I didn't have Alex to work with, I'd say, well, how do I engage an M&E appraiser to work with me on a project? First, to think deeply about the project I'm working on, and even if I need an M&E appraiser, let's assume I do. But to help, there are generally two types of M&E appraisals. One is a piecemeal, asset by asset, uninstalled values. These typically are appraisers M&E appraisers that come from an auction background or a dealer background. And the other is assumes a continued use installed. That's kind of is an assembled part of a business. And depending on what you're doing, it's that you take one or the other. And the piecemeal appraisers, most obvious service relate to the collateral valuations. Also, those appraisers may be asked by business valuation appraisers to develop uninstalled value for tangible fixed assets for business valuation adjusted balance sheet. Now, the question is, can such an appraiser just as easily develop a continued use appraisal? Maybe, if he's got the skill set. And we got to be careful about discriminating in this regard. An example, for example, to ask an able piecemeal removal appraiser how to do evaluation of tangible personal property in an ongoing business might not be appropriate. They might not have the skill sets. So the value of the information developed by the various disciplines must fit together to form an appraisal logic. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Alex here. You're here. You're on, Alex.
Note, Alex, did you hear them? Hello, Alex.
You're on.
I don't know if his audio is working. Alex, do you hear us?
I can hear, yep.
Okay. I think Jim indicated that you were up.
Okay, I guess it's me. Okay, this is the difficulty of both of us doing it. Okay. Okay, yes for the above. Jim decided he needs an M&E appraiser. So how does he find one that he can work with? Well, first, as he mentioned, ask around. Also, you can use the Find an Appraiser function of the ASA website, appraisers.org, as a BV appraiser. If you wish to work with an ASA designated M&E appraiser, do a search in the specific state for MTS appraisers. You can then see if they work for one of the big four or major appraisal firms. Voila, you have found a list of able appraisers to work with. But what if you wish to avoid an accounting or major firm appraiser because of fee structure or conflict of interest reasons? Then again, search by the state and see the list of M&E appraisers. Perhaps orient your search to appraisers that are multidisciplined. That is BV, MTS, and ARM. ARM, by the way, is Appraisal, Review, and Management. And theoretically, those appraisers, but is not necessarily the case, have a reasonable knowledge of BV, real property appraising, and machine and equipment appraising. But we're working on that as well in the ASA. So one may believe, hold on a minute. Okay, one may believe that the ASA, as well as the other appraisal societies, would set up a system to facilitate BV, RP, and M&E appraisers working together. Well, seems not to be the case, not good. You can readily go onto the ASA website and get the name of the M&E appraiser by state and city, but that is all. Not shown immediately is the employer, email, or a telephone number. You need to click again and pull up each profile, maybe. Many of the appraisers have not bothered to post their complete information profiles. Another process to find a BV appraiser generally knowledgeable an M&E appraiser is to use LinkedIn or search the M&E appraiser being considered on the internet. Yes, what one could do is, if concentrating in a particular state or country, is to look up each M&E appraiser in the state or country, pull up as available the profiles of each, print out and or re-enter needed profile data into an Excel spreadsheet and be done with it. Then you're ready and prepared. And also do the same for the National Equipment and Business Builders Institute, which is NEB, NEBB, another society, and the Association of Machinery and Equipment Appraisers, or AMEA, another society, the Professional Machinery and Equipment Appraisal Societies. Ask around of other BV appraisers, check on the ASA website, but there's not adequate information there. We're working on that. And pray, by the way. Aha, you may have found one. So let's talk about how you can maybe work together. Okay, Jim, you're on the fun part of interviewing the M&E appraiser. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to interview the person, and I'm going to be nice. After you've identified the appraiser for the assignment, you contact them, ask them about his education, skill sets, and for the appropriate for the assignment, and if they're willing to work on it and they have the time for it. Next is ask the candidate to send along his or her professional qualifications, as well as work history in similar assignments. That way you get an idea of what they've done before. The question you ask, do you understand the accounting, financial, legal situation? That's something you have to describe to the M&E appraiser candidate to find out, to let them know what the background of the assignment might be. And then ask what his experience in this appraisal problem is. What concept of value and levels of trade options may there be in appropriate to be considered the appraisal problem. Then, but what are the challenges that may occur relating to each value concept and level of trade as they relate to the subject appraisal? Is this part of the discussion so that you can understand whether he is appropriate for this particular one? Like it seems to me the value concept, A, fair market value of continued use, or B, orderly liquidation value installed, may be optionally appropriate for the appraisal problem? What are the estimated relative fees, time frame for each? Obviously, you have a budget. Typically, you've already submitted a bid to the client. So now you have a budget, and you have to get the M&E appraiser to fit within your budget. Are there ancillary services that might be incorporated? That's another thing to talk about. The final decision, compare and choose based on good luck, but luck is not by chance, it's available by working together. Now, one of the things that is very helpful after you've done this, you start building up a stable of people who you've worked with before, and you know what their strengths and weaknesses are. And one of the things you can throw out there, Alex asked me to put this one on here. Do they know what these for these other acronyms mean? Makers, FASB, IFVS, DCF, WAC, CAPM. They might or might not. I don't know what all these mean. Well, maybe I do. How many business valuations have they coordinated, managed, and what kind of training they have? So you go through this to get an idea of whether this is the person that fits with the complexity of the particular case you're working on. And now I'll let Alex come with some inverse questions.
Okay. But beware that the M&E appraiser in revenge may ask you inverse questions, such as explain economic obsolescence with an example. Well, what is the difference between replacement cost new and reproduction cost new? And explain the concepts of cost to capacity and inutility. And what are the possible factors of functional obsolescence? And so, Mr. or Mrs., tell me about your experience and knowledge in working with BV appraisers. So you're probably on those first four questions saying, oh my goodness gracious. But alert, let me give you an alert. If the above questions asked by the BV appraiser of the M&E appraiser and of the M&E appraiser of the BV appraiser are not adequately answered, do not work together. Go find, the BV appraiser should actually go find somebody else. So that's my thought. Okay. So Jim's on how to engage the M&E appraiser to work with.
There are a couple of ways to do it. One is have a handshake. Don't recommend that. A formal contract that states the purpose, the deliverables, the time and payment terms. It's very important that you have written down the contract that specifies the scope of the assignment, the deliverables, the timing of the deliverables, and how they're going to get paid. An informal agreement without any of the above is not recommended, although some people do it. A suggestion from us anyway is don't pay anything in advance other than possibly expenses for travel and whatnot. And payment will be on delivery of a report to incorporate into the appraisal or upon providing information required for the BV work. In some cases, partial payments can be made, but you want to make sure, just like if you're engaging someone to build a house for you or build a building, you don't pay for it all before you accept the building. As a BV appraiser, including the machinery and equipment appraiser, is a deadbeat, and he's going to walk.
Okay.
And it happens. It has happened to us.
Yeah, well, that's really well.
Halfway through, and our friendly appraiser decides they don't want to finish it, and that really puts us in a bind.
Okay, that's all pretty important. Okay, elements of a tangible personal property, machinery, equipment, new or used asset initial booking. Okay, this is what when the initial booking of an asset for fixed asset accounting is done. Here's what does not usually happen, but I believe should happen, by the way, so that when you're doing appraisals for different valuation purposes down the road, you are ready and you know some of that stuff. Okay, so you can purchase it new or used, and that's, if you look on the right, oh, you don't see that though. You see the predicament is okay, I want to share a screen now. Okay. Somebody needs to help me do this. Okay, share screen. Wolfgang or Chandra, how do I show the folks the screen?
Let's see, Alex, do you see the little green share icon
Yeah, I see the
in
okay.
Zoom? Yeah, click on that and then select the slide that you want.
Continue, yes. Okay. And I see the share screen, okay.
And then you have to confirm which what you want to share.
Up where it says screen. Do I press on that?
Yes, click on the screen that you want to share and then yeah, proceed. Yep. I think you did it.
Did I do it?
I believe you did. Hold on. It's just taking a minute to.
Okay, thank you guys. Now, folks, attendees, and remember, I'm new at this stuff.
Is it? Oh, there we go. Okay, it's
There
showing
you
now.
go.
Okay, so everybody can see that now?
Yes.
Yeah, looks good.
Paying attention? Okay. All right. Well, elements of the purchase of the tangible personal property. So you see a purchase new or used. That's a cost at the plant. That's what we call in the US FOB, freight on board. It's new or it's used, could be from a dealer. Okay, freight. Okay, freight to installation site. There's the same number. Whether it's new or used, it may cost the same. The rigging onto the site may cost the same, whether it's from a dealer or from a used person. Okay, the millwright meaning set it in place and properly setting it so it's ready to run would be the same. The taxes could be different. And the indirect costs, this is key, may be different, which are design and legal permits, etc. 15,000 versus 12,000. There's a different cost. Now that's all kind of important because you need to know that when that would be very helpful to know if you're doing a machine and equipment appraisal, working with a BV appraiser. But sad to say, most folks don't have that information. So the appraisers do that, and we do that on our models and spreadsheets that we use. And you want to do this asset by asset by asset. No, it's in a spreadsheet now we have that we started developing 15 to 18 years ago. And I actually teach that course for the ASA, but it has all the formulas and lookup tables and everything in it. It's pretty sophisticated. Okay. All right, so let's look at the values may vary depending on the appraisal purpose. This may be of interest. Okay, here we have a public. Now this is debatable and discussable. A public company may have an earnings-oriented purchase price allocation. If they're buying a company, they may be earnings-oriented. So they pay $131,000 for the fixed assets, and they pay and that's how they book it. Or they pay $15,000 for the indirect costs, then they depreciate at a slower rate. And the way I got to that, would you take one for the 131, you take the 146 less 15 is a 131. But then if you have a private company, they may be cash flow oriented if they have a purchase price allocation. They may want to depreciate the total of the 146 as fast as they possibly can to accelerate their cash flow and to reduce income taxes. And they have to watch out, though. There may be an offset where it may, depending on the state or the country, may increase their property taxes. So that's why back up in here, they want to isolate these different values and properly report the values for different purposes differently. But note, okay. Oh, here's a user cost as a purchase new, with the fact that asset was purchased used does not matter. We can get into that later on or another day. Okay, valuation dispute for divorce, ownership, and other legal reasons is either $146,000 or $90,000, or it could be 78. It all depends. Now, this is not saying that you're valuing, you have an asset that you say is cost X dollars for one purpose and it costs X dollars for another purpose, depending on what you defining as cost. So you want to be very professional and ethical, but the classification of assets and these different factors up here, like cost of freight, rigging, millwright, taxes, and indirect costs may vary depending on the purpose of the appraisal. And in a bankruptcy or liquidation depends upon whom or for whom. It may be $146,000 or $90,000 or even less, or $50,000 at most, excuse me. The liquidation value of the asset could be $25,000 or 50% of $50,000. Okay, now here's an aside, which is important. What is real property versus tangible personal property, machine, and equipment? Okay, real property generally is the land improvements, buildings, and structures of various governmental entities, state or country, may view real property differently. That is, anything attached or integrally constructed with the site, buildings, or structures, or weighing a certain amount, or legally stated as being real property. That's important to know. In the U.S., the state by state may vary. Okay, tangible personal property, machine, and equipment may be an asset not directly considered to be real property, or perhaps being an element of the business owning or leasing the real property. Okay, so this whole process of what is real property or tangible personal property is very significant. Examples of assets that can be considered either way may be a silo, a grain silo, a process-related distribution, electric or piping, whether that's real property or tangible personal property, machine and equipment, a small air compressor enclosure, which perhaps would be a machine and equipment, or a very large air compressor enclosure. I had one we did where there were 4 air compressors, 100 horsepower in a very large structure, and you could call that either a building or a tangible person or machine and equipment, depending on what the purpose would be. An attached small machinery foundation or structural support frame. I had a structural support frame that looked like it was a structural steel holding up machinery. This happened to be about 100 feet high and cost $8 million. But there's nobody worked in there other than to go in. Everything was outside that structure. It was all just holding machinery. Tangible personal property, machine and equipment. A very long, okay, built-in cabinets, floor carpeting. And anyway, it's very important for the machine and equipment appraiser to understand what is tangible machine and equipment, tangible personal property, machine and equipment, or what is real property, and working with the BV appraiser to go through that, and working with the M&E, the real property appraiser. If you have real property and M&E appraiser and BV appraiser working together, you have to sort that all out. Okay, getting a little technical here for a few moments. Okay, physical depreciation variances for financial reporting, tangible personal property or machine and equipment. Financial reporting depreciation usually is either straight line or over the normal useful life of the asset or based upon production rates per a given period. We know that. Appraisal depreciation may vary greatly depending on mathematical procedures, effective age, or normal useful lives. It can be straight line based upon formula, based upon a curve, based upon production rates, etc. The normal useful life selected may also vary. And this whole process of depreciation for machine and equipment is very important. Examples of variances. Okay, we have a 5-year-old asset with a 10-year normal useful life. The straight line would be 50%. If we do a production rate, we're running 1,000 assets over 3,000 assets during the life, would be 33%. Mathematical could be 41%, could be the age over the normal useful life plus the remaining useful life could be 41%. And the Marshall valuation service curve could be 42%, which is a curve that we use in the industry. But comment, effective age is critical. For example, and listen to this, an emergency generator for the operating room of a hospital can never deteriorate, say, more than 25%. You have to keep it, you have to maintain it so it's not depreciated any more than 25%. but the same emergency generator at a recycling sorting plant can be depreciated as much as 70%. So there's a big difference. Okay, here's some questions. This may be interesting. And this is a thoughtful, hopefully a thoughtful machine and equipment appraiser would go through this, through these things. Can the same asset with the same normal useful life be depreciated differently for different uses? And the answer is yes. Assets can have a maximum floor of depreciation depending upon their uses as well as their effective age. We just went over that in the model, in the example above. Can the same asset have different values in different facilities? Yes, it can. The same type of asset, and depending on how it's used and the economic obsolescence, perhaps. Can the same asset have different values in a common facility? Same asset, yes. Same answer, yes, it can. Can the same asset with the same normal useful life and effective age have varied levels of depreciation? And yes, the level of external obsolescence may vary for each. Can the same assemblage of assets with the same effective age and normal useful life vary? Yes, again, depending on the level of economic support. Two more and then we'll be done. Is functional obsolescence and normal depreciation double counting? That's debatable, but no, the additional level of functional obsolescence may be beyond what would be the normal level of depreciation. Think of your car. You have a normal level of depreciation that the car is going through, but all of a sudden, maybe the transmission is essentially blowing up. That is an example of extraordinary depreciation, or what we would call functional obsolescence. And is technological obsolescence a form of depreciation? No, it is a factor in consider in the development of the replacement cost new of a given asset as compared to when it was originally built, like a Model A versus a Model B. And here's something, this is my guidance thought, which I do in my machine and equipment appraising, is test your logic with a hypothetical extreme. You may want to think about that, and it may apply to BV evaluation as well. Test your logic with a hypothetical extreme. Okay, Jim, constant communication during the project is critical. You're on.
I'm on. So there you go. You're the appraiser working for a client, and you need the able assistance of an M&E appraiser. Ideally, you know an appraiser, where you found one through the interview process that we talked about before. Also, the M&E appraiser has at least a reasonable understanding of the BV appraisal process and the methodology you're going to be using here, which is important. And after you jointly discuss the appraisal, valuing the matter personally or by telephone with the prospect, figure out the options for services to provide. And it may be that you can't find somebody that will do the whole thing the way you want it, and you'll have to end up having two different appraisers. Not optimal, but it does happen. And often the BV appraiser needs an emerging M&E appraisal value information to run the preliminary value estimates. So we get partway through, as I said before in the earlier example, is that the M&E appraisal feeds into the BV appraisal and then back, so that that communication goes back and forth between the BV appraiser, the BV and the M&E appraiser. Don't assume that the final stage of your BV work and the final stages of the M&E appraiser's work, that the value information will magically fit together. No, when I work with Alex, it always does, magically.
Okay. Jim, I got to interrupt you. Sorry. I think Wolfgang's going to yell it in a few minutes because we have about 6 minutes left.
Okay. Well, I'm about done here.
I want to go to the conclusion there.
Go to the conclusion.
Okay. So coping and working with the M&E appraiser. I'm going to, let me go through that. So here you are, the BV appraiser working for a particular client, a lawyer or a CPA, and you need the able assistance of the M&E appraiser. Ideally, you know an appraiser that has both piecemeal and continued use appraisal skills, if both skills are needed. Also, the M&E appraiser has a reasonable knowledge of the BV appraisal methodology and service applications. Great. So discuss everything. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Talk about different strategies and applications. Really getting into it between the both of you. That would be nice. Okay. These cross-discipline value concepts do interrelate, with possibly one being dependent on the other's valuation information. Going back and forth to ensure that the value indicators from each discipline appropriately interrelate is good practice and necessary. Again, communicate, communicate, communicate. So in conclusion, there you go, Wolfgang, for you. On conclusion, the experience of a professional relationship from the perspective of a BV appraiser working with an M&E appraiser and vice versa is a rewarding experience. Both are usually using their optimal skill sets to the fullest and enjoy working together. Wolfgang, I have this example. Let me show you one thing, folks. If you're looking at my screen, down here, I have some other examples which perhaps you could read. But this Bridgeport Mill valuation example, which you all will get, I believe, is something I generated myself. It has been vetted by a few other senior ASAs. But it's all discussable, but this will give you an idea of the relationship of different values and how they fit, and it would be very useful for you to put in your file and consider down the road when you're talking to an M&E appraiser about how to work together. Okay, Wolfgang, what do you think? We got about 4 minutes. What do you want to do?
Thank you, Alex. Could you please explain the example a little bit more in the remaining time?
I'm sorry. You talk my slide a bit more? What I don't understand.
Could you please explain your example?
Oh, my example? You mean
yeah, a little bit more.
Okay. This machine, by the way, this Bridgeport Mill, is the most ubiquitous machine. You see them in more facilities in the United States than any other machine. That's why I picked on this. Okay, so that mill would cost this was 3 years ago, cost $20,000 the direct cost. So freight was $2,000, bigging and sales tax. Okay, the indirect cost 3 years ago were $500. Indirect cost being legal and permitting, and if you had to do that, engineering and purchasing and commissioning. Okay, so the direct cost. So the historic cost was $28,500. And so the accumulated depreciation for financial reporting would be $8,550. Let me go down to one thing, total cost. Okay. So the total cost, replacement cost new of a Model B would now cost $22,000. Instead of going back up to the top, it was $20,000. Now it would be $22,000. Let me get to my slide spot here. I wrote this and it's still tricky for me, by the way. Okay, so it's $22,000. So it would cost 10% more. The new one costs 10% more than the old one. So 10% more advanced, plus the $8,500 and the 10% for installing. So we back that up, and the used market value derived from the market is $12,000 from a dealer. And as I'm looking at this, I think if for BV appraisers, I need to explain this a little bit more, and Wolfgang, I will do that. But anyway, getting back to the levels of trade, this is important to understand for machinery equipment appraisers. Is levels of trade is a key phrase we use in machinery equipment appraising. And when we're talking to BV appraisers as how to work together, we say, well, let's talk about what the level of trade would be. And the BV appraiser will say, I have no idea what a level of trade would be. So here's a level of trade for the different purposes. Insurance placement would be $28,350. That's brand new, or depreciated would be $21,546. And there you go, $546. And the purchase price allocation would be $21,546. The used market value installed was $16,800. The different level of situation. The market value removal, if you took it out and just sold it on the market, would be 12,000. And for property taxes would be 20,000, not 790. So what you have to do is read through this slowly. I would suggest to the BV appraisers and look at the level of trade, which is a key phrase in the machinery equipment appraisal world. And send me a note if you have a problem with anything. And I don't know if that does very well. It would take much longer time to go through that, Wolfgang. So those are my thoughts. And also, by the way, there's definitions here. The definitions, these are tangible personal property definitions that came out of the ASA book. And I would suggest, hold on a minute, that a BV appraiser get this ASA book. Oh my gosh. Now you can get this book and you can get it digitally. I have it both ways. I just talked to the ASA, and the ASA book itself costs $140, and the ASA book and the digital is $195. And I don't get any commission out of any of this. I'm not selling this book. I'm just telling you about it. So, but BV appraisers may want to at least have should have this book around. And that's about it. Tell me what you want me to tell you, Wolfgang.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jim, for your thoughts. I already sent out the PDF on the Bridgepoint example during the chat box so far. I think everybody can see it. And I would also share the outline if it's okay for you, Alex. And
Yes, absolutely.
okay, I've prepared a PDF file, and I can share it as well now. 1 second. Here we are. So it's out. Yeah. Thank you, Alex, for your time and for your effort.
This is my first one.
Thank you, Jim. I
hope it was informative and a little bit entertaining.
It was out of the box, as I said, from a business evaluator perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next Around the Valuation World show will be on November 25th. Hope to see you there and have a great time. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.